Joe Kane.
I'm Dan Kane.
I'm Sal Conca.
And this is the Imperfect Podcast.
Don't forget to go to hecklerkane.com and sign up to be an Imperfect Podcast Insider.
To the bumper.
This week we're here with Bill Ostroff. He is the FirstGlance Film Festival director for the last 20 years.
I know. We talked to him, and he just the amount of insight that he's had on the way film festivals have evolved throughout the years was phenomenal.
Yeah, we talked about, just how he got started after finishing his degree in film at Temple University. He's been a filmmaker himself, obviously, and he's been running this festival. I mean, he screened upwards of almost 20,000 films in his lifetime. I mean, who the hell can say that?
I haven't seen that many films. I gotta tell you that, and forget the idea of screening them. I guess he's got no time to watch anything else.
Exactly, but we talked a lot about marketing the film festival and how that's changed over the decades, 2 decades to be exact. And he runs it. It's a bi-coastal film festival. It's coming up October 6th through the 8th here in our backyard in Philadelphia, and then it runs again in Los Angeles. About 6 months after that. So. We got a lot of great insights from Bill. If you're an indie filmmaker and want to figure out how to get your film into these festivals, and quality film festivals, I should add, take a listen to what Bill has to say. Bill, welcome to the Imperfect Podcast. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. I know you flew in from L.A. You're about to embark on the latest and greatest FirstGlance Film Festival that takes place in Philly, right in our backyard. We're here on Long Island.
Indeed.
And it is the longest-running bi-coastal film festival. How many years are you looking at now?
Well, this is our 20th in Philadelphia.
Wow.
We've been doing this since 1996.
That's incredible. And
you now reside in LA, though.
Yes. It was sort of an interesting situation. I wanted to work in movies, and I had started the film festival right out of college, and I was like, well, I'll go to LA and see what happens, and I'll try to keep the Philly thing going, and I did. And then I was in LA, and I was like, well, might as well do one here too.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Well, I don't know what I got myself into.
Yeah, well, I mean, having been around that long, you've seen quite the evolution in indie filmmaking, I would guess. I mean, how is it different now than it was back when you first started it?
Oh my God. Well, when we first started it, let's see, we would screen on projector things that ran reels of celluloid.
Wow.
That was really weird. So having to mail those back and forth was very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
We would cut and paste our program, literally cut and paste.
like with Elmer's glue?
Like Elmer's glue.
A little bit of tape.
Going through a Xerox machine so we could make programs. Oh, yeah. It was a much different animal back then. We actually advertised in newspapers. I know nobody knows what those are.
What?
Yeah. So it was a much, plus it was a more, when we first started, we were pretty much the only independent film festival in Philadelphia. There wasn't anything else here. At the time, there was something called the Festival of World Cinema, which turned into the Philadelphia Film Festival, which still kind of, it's funny to me because the Philadelphia Film Festival says it's 25 years old, but it's not. It's like 5 years old, because it used to be called the Festival of World Cinema, and then it changed its name, and then it kind of forced us to change ours, because we used to be called FirstGlance Philadelphia Film Festival, and they sort of sent us a little letter and like, hey, we're the Philadelphia Film Festival and you can't be. And I was
cease and desist.
It wasn't really a cease and desist. It was like a, hey, you may want to do this, or we may send you a cease and desist.
Yeah.
So we just decided, well, we'll just turn ourselves around a little bit and call us FirstGlance Film Fest Philadelphia. And, I don't think people really get confused between us and them.
Yeah.
They're, I kind of consider us like, we're the slam dance to Sundance, like
Gotcha.
Sort of like how Philadelphia Film Festival is to FirstGlance. So we're sort of like the indie arm. We're separate. People know that we're different. we don't normally get mistaken for the Philadelphia Film Festival. It'd be nice if some big sponsor would, get us.
We're gonna come in and give you tons of money. Oh wait. Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait,
it's all right. Don't worry about it.
Oh, too late. You already signed a contract.
We cashed the check.
Yeah, we cashed the check.
Exactly.
Well, talking about the evolution of, just being around for 20 years and running a film festival, you start out by saying, okay, well, this, you were running things on celluloid originally. Now, where has this gone? Where has this gone?
Oh my God. Well, it used to be really interesting because I used to every year I'd have to go to IKEA and buy new shelves to add to the VHS collection.
Wow.
And then the VHS collection turned into the DVD collection, and the DVD collection is now almost the entire screening is on a thumb drive.
Wow,
crazy.
So like between DCPs and thumb drives, I'm guessing within the next couple of years we'll find ways of actually being able to beam the information straight to the projectors at the venues. But the problem is too that because we're an indie film festival, we don't necessarily always use state-of-the-art venues.
Sure.
We try to use venues that have great screens and great sound, but they may not be up to snuff with these, giant corporations.
Well, we found out in one of our films that we went and we rented out a theater basically to just do a local showing for friends and family, basically, of one of our films that we did, and we couldn't interface with their things because they were so antiquated.
Yeah,
we're going. They're way too behind the times, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, we're indie filmmakers. We should be the ones who are behind the times. You know what I mean? Like, and these guys were like, well, we can't play what you have. You have to bump it back, and you have to give us a physical DVD. And
yeah,
I remember going, oh okay, like, it was,
well, that's gonna look shitty.
Yeah, exactly.
right.
So,
yeah.
You went to Temple, I see, for film and video. Yes. And obviously, you've been on many productions. How did you actually come up with the idea for doing the festival? Where did that stem from?
Oh, it's kind of interesting. When I was at Temple, me and 3 friends of mine started sort of a theater company, and we did like musical theater and all that kind of stuff. And I was sort of like the behind the scenes guy. And I was like, look, we should do something film. And I just started brainstorming and just like kind of sort of looking at the film festivals that were around 20 years ago. And, Sundance was always one that I had always thought, God, I'd love to go or get a film in there. And then Slam Dance. And I was like, wow, all right, I want to come up with something that sounds like Sundance or Slam Dance and sort of has sort of a feel like that, so that we don't just call ourselves like, we're the Philadelphia International Independent Film Festival of America. Because in my mind, and I think most filmmakers know, that the longer the title of the film festival, probably the smaller the venue.
Bigger titles, smaller venues.
We've been to some of those, right, Joe?
We have been to some of those.
Yeah, or they don't actually exist. They just send you a card with laurels on it, and they say, oh, by the way, you screened at blah blah blah, and you're like, well, whose basement did we screen in? So what was the question?
I was curious how you actually came up with the concept. Like, what made you decide to run an indie film festival? It's a huge business to take on.
Yeah. I had a couple of films in film school, and I always tended to make stuff that was a little bit more commercial than the professor wanted, and I always seemed to lose out to, like, the slow motion opening of a petal of a flower. And I was like, I would really like to show my stuff to people as opposed to classmates. So the venue that we were doing our musical theater in was sort of like it was like a underground sort of space that was used for theater, and people would come in and bring in their own beer and all that kind of stuff underneath the Bourse building over in Independence Hall, which the Bourse building doesn't exist anymore. Independence Hall does. But I just decided, I have 3 short films and I'd like to show them to people, so I put an ad in the newspaper, and I send out flyers, things that paper products that would go to, like, local schools, and we made postcards, and we did this like sort of grassroots marketing and ended up with like 30 films. And this way I didn't feel like it was my film festival. I felt like it was other people's film festival.
Sure.
And we had 30 films, and we screened for three nights. And I thought that was going to be it. And then people started calling and emailing. We did have email back then. It was very,
AOL.
It was
AOL
slow.
dial-up.
It was slow. Yeah, AOL.
You've got mail.
Yeah, like there was a couple of I met people like on Friendster and things like that, and so
MySpace.
MySpace.
Yeah, but Friendster was before MySpace.
That's true.
But I didn't think I was going to do another one, and then people kept on asking, so we continued, and I have kept continuing, and now 20 years later, and as of next week, I'll have produced 37 film festivals.
That's impressive.
I'll have watched about 18,000 independent films.
But who's counting?
Who's counting? Yeah, I think it was 18,112 or something.
Jesus Christ.
But and it's one of the things that I pride myself in is that I as a festival director have and will always watch every single entry.
Sure.
You know what? That's very respectable, because there's definitely people who are running film festivals who just go, I don't have time, and put it aside.
Oh, yeah. I've seen some come and go. I mean, we see the stuff on Film Freeway, right? How many times have you seen the film festival that pops up and then it disappears a year later? It has no reputation. They couldn't get their shit together. They, they can't even find time to screen the films properly. So, I can't even imagine the amount of work. Hopefully, after 20 years, you potentially have some help other than just yourself screening.
Oh no! Well, I have a I have a screening committee that I sort of pull together multiple times a year, and we add to them every year. Right now, I would say I have about 8 to 10 screeners. And basically how it works is if it gets by me, I then drop it into their boxes, and they all watch a percentage of the films, and then they grade them and send them back to me. And then we figure it out from there, and also base it on the amount of time that, physical time we have for screenings.
Sure.
And then kind of go from there. We also do, I think one of the things that we do that's a lot different than most festivals is, I want my screeners to take their job seriously, and I don't dump hundreds of hours of films on them. They may watch 15 to 20 hours of films over 2 months.
Sure.
Because it's not their job. I don't want them to have to feel like they're responsible for it. But the other thing that we do is the pre-screening committee and myself, we also do nominations in a whole bunch of different categories, and we legitimately do them. Whereas, come to speak of Film Freeway and Without a Box, that there's lots of scam, quote unquote, film festivals that aren't actually film festivals.
Yep.
That will take your money, and that might only be a $5 or $10 entry fee, but they're not watching your film, and then they just send you a laurel, and you're like, oh, best costume design, and you're like, huh?
Yeah, they're just money grabbers trying to. Yeah, it's very unfortunate.
Best costume design. It was a porn flick. Oh, wait a minute.
Right. Wait, everybody was naked. What?
Yeah.
I got to give a shout out to a friend of ours, mutual friend, Dave Bullis. I was talking to him earlier this week, and I know he's down in the Philly area. I think he's also a Temple grad like you. I know he's hosting a podcast roundtable during that time. He had some questions for you. He was interested to find out about what really has changed in terms of marketing the festival. Like, we know, the films themselves, the evolution of that, but marketing the film festival and finding new indie filmmakers. I mean, we found you because we know you're really prevalent on Twitter, and the hashtag support indie film is something that you guys are, have really embraced. Really, and even I think discovered, right, or put out there. You created it. Yeah, I'm choosing the wrong word. So how has marketing really changed in this landscape for you and the filmmakers?
Well, one of the things that I always sort of realized was we're not a giant film festival. We're a weekend film festival. We pride ourselves in being independent, but social media has been a huge thing for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned how to use social media quite well, both Twitter and Facebook. And that is how we not only cultivate filmmakers, but we also teach them how to market. If you ask any of our alumni filmmakers or the filmmakers that are currently in our run,
Mm-hmm.
From the time of acceptance, we will get to them and say, hey, here's some of the things that you need to do to market your film, because people aren't going to come to your film if they don't know it exists.
Yeah.
And I'm very I want to educate people, and filmmakers, a lot of filmmakers aren't really good at marketing. They want to make their movies and then they want to show them in film festivals. And my goal when I was a filmmaker was like, yeah, I want to have a film festival. I want to show my film, but I want as many people to see it as possible. How do I make that happen?
Mm-hmm.
And before the internet, the only way you could do that is call people or invite people or make flyers or make postcards. So what I did was, as I was learning Twitter and learning Facebook, and back in the day when Facebook was actually open and you could contact all of your followers very easily,
Sure.
you would create a Facebook event and you would invite everybody. So you worked really hard.
Hey, doggy.
There's a dog in the background.
So
right?
what's the dog's name?
Yeah. But you'd work, it was us working really, really hard, doing it all ourselves. And what I realized was that as we started to grow, and as I noticed our following starting to grow, and I was like, well, if I can educate the filmmakers to use Twitter 1/10 as well as I do,
Mm-hmm.
they'll be able to promote. And even if they can't get a lot of people to First Glance, if it's their first event, then hopefully there's the possibility down the road that by the time they finish their whole festival circuit, that they're going to have full rooms and they're going to have a really large following.
Yeah.
And then they keep that following involved, and if they ever end up online or in a place where they can sell their product, they already have their audience. And it's one of the few ways, I think, that you can build an audience without really spending money. Yeah, you got to spend some time. You got to spend time.
Yep.
But you can build an audience. I mean, when I came up with the idea of the Support Indie Film hashtag, this was when hashtags first sort of came into being, and I noticed a couple of big companies using it, like Pepsi and some of these other companies. I'm like, God, it's like, I need something to bring the community together to understand that indie film is not the kind of indie film that Hollywood is. When Hollywood's like, oh, it was an indie film and it was a $25 million film and it was, distributed by, Sony Classics. I'm like, that's not an independent film.
Yep.
La La Land is not an independent film. So my idea was like, well, if we could get this started, let's see what happens. And, we threw the hashtag out there and just used it every single day and was like, let's see what happens. And now we have thousands and thousands and thousands of followers that have tagged Support Indie Film in their profiles, that use it every single day. On average, Support Indie Film reaches somewhere between 15 and 25 million users a day.
Yeah. Hey, I'm one of those. I use the hashtag all the time.
We use it all the time. We use it all the time to promote the podcast and the other filmmakers that come on here. And it is a great movement in that, whether we're doing the podcast or whether we were crowdfunding for our own web series or watching other people, it's how we're discovering other talent. It's how and the community is so supportive. There's nobody like saying, well, that's my project, or I supported your project and you didn't support me. Like, everybody is just like everybody wants to
does
help.
What they can do.
Yeah,
I mean,
everybody wants to help. Everybody wants to help, and it is a great community. So thank you for starting that.
Oh, well, thank you for keeping it going, because it's really, for me, when I started it, I looked at it as, maybe it can be something in the future. And in the last couple of years, I've noticed that there are big names that are starting to use it.
Mm-hmm.
There's bigger companies that are starting to notice it. And I think that we're on the cusp, I think, of something happening. And there's a lot of these big blockbuster movies that are going out there and they're making no money.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sure.
there's a whole lot of real true indie film and indie filmmakers that are making films, for $100,000 or $200,000 that would probably in a second sell it to break even. And these big giant 20, 30 screen megaplexes, you could walk into them most of the days of the week and walk into any screen and find 5 people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So if these megaplexes would open up one of their screens to someone like me, I could fill that place every day with a new project.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is one of the things that's missing, and it's so hard for people. Like, so there's certain filmmakers who are still looking for a little bit of traditional distribution, and distribution in itself is a whole other animal in terms of getting screen time and things like that, and video on demand. That's a whole other podcast discussion in and of itself.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm curious, as a festival director and the amount of indie films that you screen, what is it that you look for that makes it into your festival? Is there something? Is there a criteria? Is it something that just catches your eye? What advice would you give to filmmakers submitting to First Glance?
Well, I would say, look at our alumni films. Go to our YouTube channel and look at the trailers.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see a wide variety of content from all genres. We don't. Here's the thing: is I've always been someone who enjoys all sorts of entertainment, and I just look at things for their production value. I look at things for the acting. I look at sound. Well, not look at, but I listen to the sound. I look at the cinematography. I feel out the theme of the story, because like a lot of people will be like, oh well, will you accept stuff that's that's shot only on red or only on film or only on whatever? And I'm like, it's not about that. It's about the storytelling. And it could be shot on an iPhone if the story is good and the acting is good and the sound is decent. And there's no real criteria, except, do I think that an audience will enjoy this film in some way or another? Sure. Will you laugh? Will you cry? Will you be like, wow, that was a great short film, or oh my god, that was the cutest animation I've ever seen, or that was a neat music video and it had a really cool story to it and it wasn't just a bunch of people yelling into a microphone. Is this web series different? Is this web series original? Is this documentary poignant? It's hard because when you only have a finite amount of time to program, and there's a lot of things that you sort of have to think about and look at, and I don't think a lot of people have the knowledge that I have. Doing it for 20 years, twice a year, watching the amount of films that I do, I have an eye for it now.
Sure.
Yeah.
And and I get it. I mean, every filmmaker wants to be in a film festival. I totally understand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why film festivals pop up left and right, because eventually your film will end up in something. Will it end up in First Glance? I don't know. And I never know, because it's based on the other entries that come in.
Sure.
And it depends on, do we have the time? I mean, if it's a 7-minute short film, possibility is that it's a much better opportunity. If it's a 109-minute feature, well, it better be great.
Because only so many
There's only so many features that you can put up there.
Yeah,
Sure.
and you're also looking at almost 2 hours of one project. And one of the things that I sort of take pride in is that when we screen, we never screen just one film. We always screen a program. So, like, yeah, it may be a feature film, but there might be 4 shorts in front of it.
Yeah.
So you're going to get a combo of stuff.
Do you see any trends happening in terms of one genre and two format? Like, are people submitting more, horror these days, or comedies or dramedies? And, are people doing more short films or web series based content as opposed to features? What types of trends are you seeing in the submissions now versus 1996?
It's cyclical, but I think because technology has made things a lot easier and more affordable, and I think that we're seeing a little bit more sci-fi, we're seeing a little bit more horror, we're seeing stuff that's extraordinarily topical. Back in the day when you would shoot on film and then you have to edit, and by the time you're there, it's like, if it's an indie film, it could be 2 to 3 years old by the time you get it into the festivals. But it's also, that we're finding, a lot of original voices and a lot of interesting filmmaking in the way of, like, people are using all kinds of instruments now to shoot. It seems like every 6 months there's some new weird product coming out, and we even get people that ask, hey, we'd love to do a virtual reality movie at your film festival, and I'm like, well, that's great, but we don't have the ability to show that.
We're still playing DVDs.
Yeah, I mean, but it's still, the theater that we're in isn't going to be able to provide 200 headsets.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit harder. Or hey, we have a 3D movie, and we tried 3D for a few years, but it just didn't seem to pan out, because 3D is expensive.
Yeah,
3D is expensive.
3D didn't pan out for anybody, I don't think. I think I saw, the only movie I saw in 3D was Jackass.
We saw one by accident.
Yeah, we saw one by accident.
We didn't
recently.
realize, and then we had, what was that?
Was it?
But like Avatar and like stuff that was actually made for 3D.
Correct.
It's cool, but I mean, you need to see it on a giant screen, and it's a hard process. And I think VR is also in that sort of, how do we make a full-length VR movie? And I couldn't even watch that weird, that hardcore Henry or Harry that came out like a year or two ago.
Oh yeah, the point of view.
It was like a first-person movie.
It looked like a video game of sorts.
Yes, it was shot like a video game.
Well, I got to tell you, going into like a VR theater, I don't want to put the glasses on that somebody else wore, because that's gross. Thinking about putting on a whole goggle system and a thing on your head. Ugh.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's it's cyclical. It's like every year it changes. It depends on the mood of the country, I think, and and it's hard. It's interesting to me because I think that the genre stuff is great, and the production value always seems amazing too. But sometimes they'll go after the production value and the effects, and the acting is like subpar. And I definitely think that as a filmmaker and also as a festival director, one of the main things I think that every filmmaker should look at is their actors first. Get the right actors for your movie before you go and shoot it. If you have to postpone a little bit, unless your grandmother is Jane Fonda, don't cast your grandmother in a movie, because it's gonna take everybody out of it. And I understand that with money and time and the energy, and you're already shooting, and but with the magic of editing, you don't have to shoot grandma at the same time.
Yep, exactly.
But I think that the trend is that people also want to use like the most high-tech cameras and all this kind of stuff, and sometimes that doesn't even matter either, because I'm looking at the story, and I don't mind if it's gritty, if it calls for it. And I think that I'm not, I'm not like dead set on a certain criteria for anything. It's like if I enjoy it, and I think that I pretty much can enjoy anything. So
yeah,
that's sort of the criteria. And I mean, if it gets by me, then it goes to the screeners, and the screeners come back to me with their ratings and their nominations and their categories, and we just go from there. And then whatever time we have, we go from there. And then as sort of like a backup, we usually do a little short online contest, which runs for 30 days, usually right after the film festival.
Oh, cool.
And we usually give, and it's free, and we give the opportunity to usually between 15 and 20 other filmmakers. And the winning film for the short online ends up premiering at the next festival. So they would premiere their film at First Glance in LA in 2018.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Well, Bill, this has been super informative for us. I know you're so close by. I wish we could actually make the festival this year. Hoping maybe next year our web series will get a shot at being featured in the festival. So we'll have to run that by you. But wanted to
that was a little hint thing. That was
wink wink nod hint hint. Our web series will be finished by next year.
It's there's a thing called Film Freeway, and we're still hanging in on Without a Box.
Cool.
although just by a thread.
Well, those people who are listening, the festival is taking place this Friday, October 6th through Sunday, October 8th.
Yep, exactly, and that's the First Glance Film Festival in Philly. Go down, check out these great films, support indie filmmakers. Go follow First Glance Films online at firstglancefilms.com, and you could chat with all of us on Twitter. Just use the hashtag #SupportIndieFilm. Bill, you have any parting words you'd like to mention for today?
So on top of the fact that we're having our 20th festival next weekend, we're also doing on Thursday night, we have a cool podcast roundtable at Homegrown Coffee and Creations, which is down the road off Broad Street in Jackson, I believe.
Yep, with our buddy Dave Bullis.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to have some directors there. I'll be there. We'll be having some coffee and chatting. And then Friday, we're at the Kimmel Center. It's a great 500-seat theater. We're going to be screening The Hatred, which has over 26 million trailer views online. So we're hoping we're hoping to get at least 2 million of those people in.
And then
the rest of the weekend, we're at the Painted Bride Arts Center, which is in Old City. And for those people that are interested, the call for entries for First Glance LA 18 just opened last week. So we're still in early call for entries. So the entry fees are still low. And LA will be a 4-night event held at the Laemmle in North Hollywood in March, I believe March 8th through 11th, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's 4 days. So we've been expanding in LA because we've been doing so well. So, filmmakers, features, shorts, docs, web series, trailers, music videos, student films, professionals, if you got a great indie, send it our way. We definitely take care in watching. Even if it doesn't get in, be sure, you can be sure that I've watched it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's made it past me, that a couple other people have as well.
Sure. And all that matters is the story. Not all that matters, but not all that matters, but the story is what's going to be the most compelling aspect of getting your work looked at. So.
Yeah. And like I said, for filmmakers that are on the fence, they're not sure, just, go to our YouTube channel and check out some of the trailers of the films we screen. They're up there. They've been up there for years. We have, 10 or 12 years worth of trailers sitting on YouTube. And, you can see the quality of even the trailers has gotten better and better and better. So
awesome.
Like I said, we're there to support the indie films, and, even if they don't get in, as you guys know, support indie film. I mean, we're always retweeting, people that are using it. So
exactly,
whether you get in or not, you're still going to get the power of our, of us.
Just frankly, you got to become part of the community.
That's it. That's what it takes. Become part of the community, and we're all here to support that. So Bill, thank you so much for being so supportive and chatting with us and telling us about First Glance. And hopefully, we'll see you at the festival one of these years.
Yeah, I hope so. All
right,
Bill.
Bill.
Guys, have a good one.
You too. Take care.